Hello and welcome to PoliticOly. This is episode 33 and it's November 1st, 2020. I've just got a short show today with a few pieces of news to talk about. The general election is coming up in a couple of days, of course, and I plan to have a live reaction show as results for Washington State and Thurston County in particular roll in at 8 p.m. Pacific on Tuesday. So I plan to be going live on YouTube and Facebook, hopefully as well. So hopefully you can join in the chat and share your election reactions as well. So I hope to see you there. And I'll share a link soon to the live stream page so you can set a reminder and share that. And you can keep an eye on my Twitter at PoliticOly for that link later, probably later today. So obviously there are a multitude of content creators out there who will be live at the time, but most of them will be focused on the presidency and national level stories. I'll be focused on Thurston County and Washington State results primarily, along with other progressive and third-party candidates across the country. Let me know who I should keep an eye on in the comments below. Thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate every view, like, subscription, and share. As a small local channel, every click helps, so thank you in advance. And to start the show off, here are some photos of Tahoma or Mount Rainier overlooking Thurston County from off Wattle Creek Road this past week. It's been really beautiful out there lately. If you have posted a nice landscape photo as well that you'd like to share, you can post a link in the comments below. And I will check it out. Let's see. Next photo doesn't want to load here. Anywho, I did want to share also a couple other photos. This is from downtown Olympia, some street art here at 5th and Franklin. Let's start the news with this article in the Yakima Herald by Lex Talamo. Okay, that was weird. Anyway, titled New Public Records Project Will Monitor Immigrant Enforcement and Activity in the State. And this is in the Yakima Herald Republic from October 27th. Quote, University of Washington's Center for Human Rights plans to file public records requests with local governments and law enforcement agencies to monitor immigration enforcement and activity in the state. The center will use public records to study whether local police, sheriffs, jails, prosecutors, and state agencies are complying with state laws that protect immigrant communities from unwarranted collaboration with federal agencies, including U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement and U.S. Customs and Border Protection, according to a news release. The new project builds on the Center's Human Rights at Home initiative, which has previously released reports about chartered deportation flights in King and Yakima counties, collaboration by local law enforcement and prosecutors with immigration arrests at local courthouses around the state, as an aside, including here in Thurston County. The quote continues, and an ongoing series of reports about human rights conditions at the Northwest ICE Processing Center, commonly known as Northwest Detention Center in Tacoma. The Keep Washington Working Act and Courts Open to All Acts, passed respectively by the Washington legislature in 2019 and 2020, restrict unwarranted collaboration and information sharing between local agencies handling immigrant populations and federal immigration enforcement agencies. But enforcement communities statewide have continued to report that state and local resources are being used for enforcement of civil immigration violations, a university press release said. Partners in the project include the Washington Defender Association, the Northwest Immigrant Rights Project, the ACLU of Washington, Columbia Legal Services, One America, and the Washington Immigrant Solidarity Network. Community members can report potential collaboration by Washington state, county, or local agencies with ICE or CBP to the Washington Immigrant Solidarity Network's hotline, and there is a phone number here as well. And you can find a link to this, as well as any other story that I talk about, in the description below, so that you can get that information. And so thanks to all who are working on that effort, documenting the abuses here in Washington state, so that we can organize around that and get better conditions for the victims and so on. So thanks to all those engaged in that. Next, this is a post by local attorney and activist Leslie Cushman, who says, quote, "Encouraging all of us to take action regarding this. Please contact Sheriff Snazza at snazza@co.thurston.wa.us. Tell Sheriff Snazza we expect a complete criminal investigation on par with any homicide, including looking at motive, premeditation, and apparent lack of intent to comply with Washington law, that use of deadly force by police officers must be necessary." And this is with regard to the Michael Reinol killing by law enforcement that I've reported on previously. But that effort to get accountability continues. So thanks to Leslie Cushman for continuing to highlight that. And with that in mind, did you know the Thurston County Sheriff position is up for election in 2022? And we're looking at runforoffice.org here. We haven't had a leftist sheriff candidate here ever that I can recall, and we need to change that. We need to at least have an activist or protest candidate, right? We've got to find someone willing to run next year, 2021, and then get ready to support a 2022 campaign. Think of someone you know who has community roots, who is knowledgeable about law and constitution and civil rights, and let them know that you would support them if they chose to run for office. And I think Leslie Cushman, as previously mentioned, would be an example of such a community leader. The type of person that we need to be finding and encouraging to run for office for all of these local positions and supporting. This is a tweet here by Fair Vote Washington at FairVoteWa. Quote, "Breaking, the Olympia City Council has passed a resolution in favor of local options for ranked choice voting. This is such great news. Thanks to the members of the council for supporting more choice and more voice for their constituents." And I echo those sentiments. We need ranked choice voting or instant runoff voting to address people's concerns about spoiler candidates, so people can really vote for who they support. And if you want to learn more about that effort statewide and how to help, you can check out their webpage at fairvotewa.org. With this type of system, you can vote for the candidate you really want as your number one, and then you also have a backup candidate who your vote goes to in the case that your number one choice falls out of the running. For example, if the U.S. had this system in place, then all the progressives and leftists could vote for Howie Hawkins and Angela Walker as their first choice for president. Then people who want to could have Biden and Harris for their second choice, which would mean the true level of support for a Green campaign could be shown, while the argument that those votes are enabling Trump would be addressed. This is important to bring up when people say they're concerned about that. Just say, if you really don't want third-party votes to spoil your liberal candidate, then please support passing ranked choice voting. Otherwise, it's just vote shaming. So if you want to actually address the problem, the solution is right here. So thanks to the Olympia City Council for taking the time to voice their support for this change, and thanks to Fair Vote Washington for their work as well. Last episode, I reported on the eviction notice RV owners had received saying they would be cleared away from Ensign Road near St. Pete's Hospital in Olympia. Here's an update from the Olympia Tribune by Mindy Chambers, posted October 26th, titled Breaking, City Hall Calls Off Sweep After Attorney General Weighs In. Quote, "The move is off. After receiving a letter from the State Attorney General's office Monday stating the city's plan to evict residents living in vehicles along Ensign Road is a likely violation of the state's eviction moratorium, the city changed its mind. Residents will not have to relocate or have their vehicles towed." And I'm going to end the quote there, and I encourage you to follow the link to read the rest of that article. But this is another example of local government jurisdictions, and especially the city of Olympia, fighting against the already weak protections that houseless people have in our area instead of doing everything they can to ensure human rights for all. They're always talking about doing better on this issue, but then they turn around and use the police to criminalize our comrades in the most dire need of assistance. This is an embarrassment for the city of Olympia, to be honest. You all need to do better to live up to your stated ideals. This is an update from our friends down at Radiance Herbs and Massage, which is a local business downtown that you should support. Quote, "A quick update on our internal efforts and discontinuance of selling white sage, sweetgrass, and palo santo. As we have mentioned recently, Radiance Herbs and Massage has discontinued carrying white sage, sweetgrass, and palo santo in raw form, and we have even discontinued essential oils, body care, and skin care that use these elements as well. All items have been pulled from our retail floor and are no longer available at Radiance. Our remaining stock has been gifted back to our native customers, and 2 large donations have been made to both the Chehalis and Cowlitz tribes. The use of white sage, palo santo, and sweetgrass for ceremonial cleansing and ritual is a native practice in both the northern and southern Americas. These cultures have been exploited, suppressed, and misunderstood by so many people for centuries and are the victims of cultural appropriation. The use of these plants by non-native cultures is cultural appropriation at its worst. Why? Well, not only is it using a closed spiritual practice that non-native people are using without knowing its roots, meaning, or power, but the boom in popularity all over the world has actively harmed these plants and their environment because there's not enough to fill the demand. White sage and palo santo are not easy to grow as a crop for harvest, though some people are trying and finding success, which is great, and I hope it continues. But the larger problem is that most people still don't know they're perpetuating exploitation, commodification, and appropriation. Cultural appropriation can be an uncomfortable topic, and the line between appreciating and learning from another culture and stealing from them in a harmful way needs to be a regular dialogue and forethought for all retailers and consumers. Thank you for your continued support in our efforts to be a better company, a respectful and conscious company, an ethical business." So thanks to Radiance for that. And again, I encourage you to support them as they're an awesome local business. This is a tweet I made on October 30th saying that it's very sad how we as a society have failed our elders. And that was in response to this Olympian article, quote, "Majority of residents at memory care facility have tested positive," with regard, of course, to COVID-19. And this is talking about Garden Court Memory Care in Olympia. And so the majority of the residents there have tested positive for coronavirus. So that is a horrible outbreak. And it just goes to show, and because of what we've learned about this virus, it affects people of all ages. And of course it affects elders in particular, but it doesn't affect only elders. And so when we see a story like this saying the majority of residents at an elder care facility have contracted the virus, then what that says is actually that the facility is really inadequate. And it's not alone. We hear time and time again over the years that people in our community have been trying to warn us that elder care facilities have been inadequate, and the people who work there are underpaid, they're understaffed often, and don't have the adequate means to provide adequate, dignified care for our elders in our society. And so this is a problem in our society that exists previously. So when a pandemic happens, then what we're seeing is that those residents are being impacted far more than they need to be because of our failure to address those problems in just how our society is organized in terms of caring for people who need it. So anyway, sending my love to everyone affected by that outbreak there. And we'll have to speak more on this issue in the future. So we need to talk about Kevin Peterson Jr., a black man who was killed by police in Vancouver, Washington recently. And I'm going to start by sharing the GoFundMe page for Kevin Peterson Jr. here. I organized by his father, Kevin Peterson, and it's raised almost $38,000 out of their $100,000 goal. So there's quite a ways to go there. So get the link to this fundraiser below and share it. Donate if you can. Share it if you can't. And let's get this need met. I will quote here: Kevin K.P. Peterson Jr. is my son. Yesterday, he was murdered by the police in Vancouver, Washington. Kevin was only 21 years old and leaves behind a 4-month-old daughter. He was a happy young man with his whole life ahead of him, and now he's become another face of racial injustice. We waited 12 hours in the cold before we were even able to identify him. Throughout the entire night, the Vancouver police had told us nothing. Today, unknown to us, Clark County Police held a press conference giving out more information to the public than they could give to us, his own family. I'm asking my community to come together and help as much as each person can, whether it be sharing this post, donating for funeral costs, praying over us, or even just saying his name when they want us to stay silent. Hashtag Justice for Kevin. May he rest in peace and power. This is a post by a former teacher of Kevin's named Teresa Beck Van Heemstra. Hashtag Kevin Peterson Jr. Say his name. I met Kevin the summer before his 3rd grade year and my first year of teaching. His mom invited me to his house. She served watermelon. Kevin proudly showed me his messy bedroom. His little brother crawled around on the floor in diapers. I taught Kevin for 6 years. As with any elementary or middle school kid, it wasn't always easy. Kevin didn't love to sit still. He struggled with homework and handwriting. He wasn't always polite. But he remembered everything I said, even when he was turned around or bouncing out of his seat. He was the first to the playground to organize a football or basketball game. He loved to help, to lead the class in something, to come help me clean up after school. After he graduated from 8th grade, he came back regularly to check in. He and I followed each other on Instagram. When he graduated from high school in 2017, he sent me a screenshot of his diploma from his high school in Vancouver, Washington, because he knew I'd be proud. He was absolutely loved by his parents, his little brother, his friends, and his teachers at the Portland Village School. He left behind a baby girl who will never know her father since his life was taken at the hands of police in Vancouver last night. He will be forever missed. Now, again, that was in Vancouver, Washington. And in response, the community there organized a vigil for Kevin Peterson Jr., and they created a memorial with candles and photos and all that, and had a vigil with signs and everything out of respect and commemoration for the life that was taken. And unfortunately, we have in our society such horrible people that would come out and protest against a vigil for the life of a community member who is lost. And so I'm going to share a couple of different perspectives here from local journalists who are on the ground in Vancouver over the past couple of days. This is Corey Elia from October 30th. And so it starts with just a small counter-protest, and then some of the right-wingers apparently have a big armored vehicle down there, and oh, there we go. And I just wanted to share down further in this thread here that yeah, there it is. There were some Patriot Prayer type folks down there, and basically they started threatening some of the folks at the vigil, and this truck, of course, has been a regular fixture at these right-wing gatherings, that they threaten people with their trucks and all this. And Chandler Pappas, who has been in the area, who is a known violent criminal, he was there walking through the crowd with a rifle. There was a direct action protest forming there, and so anyway, you can check out at the real Corey Elia for some more on the ground reporting there. And here is another from at Astute AF on Twitter, Jace the Perturbed, and they are saying, quote, "I am shook, friends. I was going home from the march downtown and decided to take photos because I saw the candles were all lit and it was beautiful. Then a silver sedan drives up and crushes a bunch of the candles, knocks over signs, destroys flowers. I don't get it. I just don't." And that, you can just barely see it. They just caught the tail end of it on the video there, but the car just goes and drives right over a memorial for a lost community member, which is just so sad. Thankfully, they identified this car. Someone caught it on video, desecrating a memorial. Thankfully, community members went and were able to clean that up and restore the memorial there. So thank you to everyone who created or participated in that memorial there. Some signs and other reporting here. And this is from Alyssa Azar at R3Volution Daddy, Revolution Daddy, on Twitter. And they are another local journalist. And I wanted to share this because they witnessed a couple of shots being fired into the air when some of the right-wingers were confronting folks. There was a truck standoff, anyway, I don't know which post that was, but you can, if you want more on the ground reporting, this is just another person doing that I wanted to share. And so obviously, again, the links to everything I share are below, so you can check that out for yourself for more reporting on the scene there. Now, coming up is the election day, obviously, and there is an event downtown hosted by the South Salish Coalition titled Election Day People's Assembly. And this was, I believe, starting at 2 or 2:30, and now it's starting at 12:30. So they've expanded it. It's going 12:30 to 6 on Tuesday down at Heritage Park, also known as Stechas. And this will be this event sounds awesome. It's hosted by Olympia DSA, Olympia Anarchist Mutual Aid Collective, and several other local organizing groups. They have added these earlier hours for mingling and tabling and land acknowledgement, opening speaker. They got workshops, more speakers, a strategy talk with Peter Boehmer, an Evergreen professor who is a local organizer as well. That's probably going to be good. Along with all these others, we got strategy discussion with Riley Woodward Pratt from Oli DSA. There is an open mic there as well, 4:30 to 6. So if you'd like to come say something on election day there in the community, voting is one thing. Vote, do your thing, but then get back to organizing, because we got a lot of work to do in the community, and so thanks to South Salish Coalition and all the other groups putting this together. And I'll be working on that day, so I'll be missing most of this. I may end up trying to catch the tail end, I'm not sure, but if you do make it to this and you would like to report on it for the show here, feel free to contact me about that. And so this week's feature is going to be on Tuesday, right? The election results live reaction video. So that's about it for today's show. I'm just going to wrap up here, and I hope that you tune in on Tuesday. I'll start streaming probably about 8 p.m. when the Washington and Thurston County the initial results rather, to be clear, of course, we won't know the full results for a couple of weeks. So always, important to throw that out there. But the initial results, we'll see them roll in, and we'll take a look at Thurston County races. We'll take a look at what races across Washington State, and then we'll, of course, go and look around, nationally and see what's going on with some of the more progressive and leftist candidates across the country. So comment below which race, which election we should talk about, which ones we should keep an eye on. We're going to look, we're going to see how Mariana Everson does. We want to know how badly Carolina Mejia crushes C. Davis. We want to see how well Marco Lias can do against Denny Heck. We want to see how Sheree LaSalle does against Frank Chop. And so on. So we will go through and check up on, again, we're going to focus mostly on local and regional candidates here, because you've got so many content creators out there that are going to be just talking about presidential and national level stuff. And so we're going to try to take a little bit of a different angle. So if that's something that interests you, I would really appreciate you keep an eye out for when I post that, and then share it so that we can get other people in. I'm going to try to be live on Facebook and YouTube, and so I'd really like to have enough people watching live that we can have some comments and some discussion as these results roll in. So let's all cross our fingers here and get those last minute votes in. Go do your last minute sine wave or phone bank or anything like that. Check your vote, check your ballot status to make sure it gets counted. And and we'll see you on Tuesday. So anyway, thanks for tuning in. Love and solidarity and peace.